Everybody says they need a new leader in the Black community. They say there are no more Malcolms, no Malcolm X's, Martin Luther King's, Stokely Carmichael's, Frederick Douglass's, Fannie Lou Hamer's, Harriet Tubman's. I come to ask, where are they now? Those said leaders. Did they survive their leadership role? Did they successfully live while fighting for the liberation of a people, our people? And then I want to ask, who's a leader in Asian America, in the Latino world? I mean, for the Native American, and even for the white people. Who are their leaders? Well, we know who the white people's leader is. We'll get into that. But I'm just wondering, do we need a face? Do we need a leader in the Black culture to pass on our agenda, to successfully bring forth our agenda? I'm just curious. What do y'all think? Okay, I know that's no way to start a show. So I will start over and I'll be right back. Well, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya, so very happy to be with you on this very fine Saturday. Listen, your presence is my present, and I'm just grateful to be present with you all today. Let's see, what is the temperature here in Las Vegas? I know they're lying. We don't have, they're cutting budgets on all of the weather channels and everything, so we might not get the real weather, y'all. I'm just saying, but they say it's 96. All right, give or take. It could be 96 degrees. I'll let them have it. I'll let them have it. But shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to GB. I see you first in the chat today. Mark Mag, what's up? What's up? Thank you for joining. I see you, Shanta. Thank you so much for joining. And Pieces of She. Oh, thank you guys for being here in the chat. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about today, don't we? We do. So I'm gonna try to get in there. I have this thing where I say I'm gonna try to shrink it into an hour, but I won't make that commitment with you guys because then y'all be calling me, and not being honest. Because I do try, but it's difficult because I have so many things that I want to talk to you guys about. Remember, we do this once a week. It's not like I'm here every day or every other day. Just once a week on a Saturday, I get to chop it up with y'all. So I just want to go through a bunch of things that are on my mind because I'm in your ear. And also by me being in your ear, I want to know what's on your mind too. So don't be shy. Let me know what you're thinking in the chat. And if you have any opinions about anything that we're discussing, I hope that you will join in and add to the conversation. So let's get into it, you guys. On this lovely day, actually, it was yesterday. If you guys don't know, Henrietta Lacks had a birthday. August 1st, she was born 1920. But also a significant thing to think of and consider on this day is that was actually August 1st, which was her birthday, was the actual day that her family actually won a lawsuit. So on August 1st, 2023 as well, on her birthday, the estate of Henrietta Lacks settled its lawsuit against the Massachusetts biotech company after civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who filed a lawsuit in 2021 on behalf of the Lacks estate, submitted his complaint. They won. So in 2021, the complaint was that Lacks family accused Thermo Fisher Scientific Incorporated of profiting from HELA cell line, named after the 31-year-old Black mother of 5 at the time who died of cervical cancer in 1951 at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, whose tissue was harvested without her knowledge or consent while she was being treated for cervical cancer. The terms of the settlement are confidential. Even though I was Googling and looking and people had different numbers, you just can't trust what you see and read. You really have to dig in and do the knowledge because, there was a time in our life where, we could pretty much depend on the news to a high percentage. But now you just can't just you really have to check your sources. But anyway, so it went on to say that the settlement was not disclosed. That's confidential. But the interesting thing about Miss Henrietta Lacks is her cells were taken from her body without her knowledge. Again, and they were used from the HeLa cell line, which has been used extensively in medical research since that time. So this lady was suffering and ended up succumbed to her death through cervical cancer, but they found out that her cells were superhuman, basically. So during the attempts to cure her shortly before she died, Lack's abnormally resilient cancer cells were removed from her tumor and were used for decades. Currently, to this day, remember she passed in 1951, by researchers without her family's knowledge. Okay, they were doing this. Okay, makes you wonder. We know the truth. They've been doing it, right? So during attempts to cure her shortly before she died, Lack's abnormally resilient cancer cells, I just said that, were used to for research. The cells dubbed HeLa again for the first letters of her first and last names were the first ever human cells to grow endlessly in the lab. All others harvested up to that point died. So she was the only one who had cancer cells that survived and were able to be used for cancer research. And not just research, but it made significant impacts in our lives today. Okay, her cells helped to come up with a polio vaccine, cancer treatments, HPV vaccines, influenza treatment, and it also is used for mapping the human genome. So shout out to Henrietta Lacks, and I just think that's so significant that the day that she was born is when the settlement took effect. I imagine that the family didn't get what they deserved. Her name should be trademarked anytime. How do you just the HeLa again? Those are the first letters and of her first and last name. Those are the letters of her first and last name. So they use Henrietta Lacks HeLa for research. So this name should be coined and be owned by her family, which they just did all this secretly. So I doubt that this family is getting any compensation for them even coining her name, using acronyms, initials from her first and last name, and then just all of the impact. I mean, this is not even in the billions as far as the substantial significance and contributions her cells have contributed to the world, not just the United States of America, but the world. And they did this secretly. So these people should be amongst wealthy. They should have more money than Elon Musk, who they say is the richest man in the world. Whatever. Okay. But yeah, so shout out to her. I just think that's so significant. It's really, really crazy. Yeah, shout out to GB who says through her genetics, she is technically the oldest living person. Amen. Facts, baby, facts. Okay. And shout out to Genuinely Poised, who's also in the chat. She just wants to say happy weekend, y'all. Toya, you look beautiful. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? I try to do a little something, something, so I can be easy on the eyes for y'all. Love the earrings. Thank you. I do too. I'm not really a pink person, but when I'm in a pink mood, yes, listen, it's going down, y'all. It's going down. Meet me in the trap. It's going down. Anyway. So yeah, so shout out to Henrietta Lacks. Also, that was yesterday, her birthday, August 1st, but August 2nd, that's today. Apollonia Cotero was born in 1959. Y'all remember Apollonia? Don't tell me y'all remember Apollonia. Listen, Linda. She's an actress, songwriter, producer. She also was a director. I think she's still a podcast host and a former model. Okay, she's known for co-starring in Prince's 1984 film Purple Rain. Okay, if y'all don't know, for having the lead single role in the girl group Apollonia 6. That's what they called it. That was her group name. That was her name outside of the movie, but within the movie, I think it was called Vanity 6. So I might have them switched around, but I think Apollonia's one or the other. So her real group name was either Apollonia 6 or Vanity 6, and the other was used in the movie Purple Rain. So that's that. But listen, I got to tell y'all, when I was a kid, we used to stand outside. Back in the day when kids used to actually be outside, okay? Nowadays we just stay in the house getting a hump in their back on them phones. But anyways, we used to be outside playing hide and go, seek, or some other stuff. We used to be out red light, green lighting it, and we would make up skits and things, and the girls would get together, and later we would get the boys to congregate with us, and we would perform for them. So one of the things we would do is our favorite singers and artists, we would get together and do them. And I guess we all had watched Purple Rain, so we was doing Sex Shooter. We was performing Sex Shooter, shooting love in your direction. Yeah, in junior high. Yes, maybe even elementary, if I could remember. It probably was late elementary, fifth grade. I don't know. But we was putting the skit together to perform for the youngsters, the males that were out doing their thing, riding their bikes across town, getting water at McDonald's, and staying out before the street lights came on. That's what we were doing. So ain't that crazy though? We didn't know what we was talking about. I don't even know if I understood what sex was when I was singing that song, but I was trying to be sexy with it because like they did on Purple Rain. But anyway, shout out to Apollonia Cotero. One interesting fact I learned about her is she co-wrote Manic Monday with Prince. And if you guys don't know that song, it's by the Bangles. The Bangles actually ended up performing the song. So I guess they sold it to the Bangles. Just another Manic Monday, okay? Just another Manic Monday. I wish it was Sunday because that's my fun day because I don't have to run. Hey, that's my jam, y'all. I'm sorry. If y'all don't know about that, y'all just young, okay? And not exposed to all of the music, okay? I'm just saying.com. Shout to Jackson said they, who was bad? Me? Or them, because I was a good kid. Okay. All right. Also on this day, y'all listen, George Jetson has finally turned 3. Okay. Y'all know who I'm talking about? George Jetson. Y'all don't know who George Jetson is? Y'all know who George Jetson is. George Jetson, let's see, it's 22, 32. Yeah, he's 3. Because according to the date that they say he was actually born, he was born July 21st of 2022, somewhere in there. So either today or yesterday, he was 21st. I got my dates mixed up. We are in August. Y'all, rewind the tape. I'm so sorry. But anyway, I think this is a fun fact. I want to say I saw another posting, and maybe I'll look it up, that he was born August 1st, but I could have my stories mixed up. Either way, he's only 3 years old, according to the reports. He was born in 2022 in the summer months, either July or August. All right, I got my dates mixed up maybe. But anyway, this is a fictional character from the Jetsons, the cartoon we all grew up with, some of you Gen Xers, okay? So yeah, I'm talking to the Gen Xers when I talk about Manic Monday, Apollonia, Purple Rain, and the Jetsons, of course, and the baby boomers for sure. So yeah, y'all remember that? So the thing about the Jetsons was it was supposed to be a futuristic show, right? We saw them put food in a machine and it popped out seconds later. They travel in air, in cars, in space. They just did everything fast. And now all of what we saw on the Jetsons has come to fruition. We have microwaves now. We put our food in the microwave and we can get it in 60 seconds easily. It's going to be smoking for us. But yeah, the Jetsons introduced us to a lot of the technology that we take advantage of today. And they said that at that time, because the cartoon was set in 2062. So we haven't reached that yet, but we have advanced in the technology up until now, 2025. So that's interesting. So yeah, so it was set in 2062, and a lot of what we see is now in fruition. But they're saying that he had been born in 2022. So technically, he's only 3 years old. If we're going back in time and all that, I know that's like a little brain messing with your brain or whatever. But anyway, so the Jetsons debuted in 1962 before I was thought of, but I do remember watching it as a kid. And I'm going to go back and watch it again because, the stuff that we watched as kids or read as kids, as we get older and start reading and watching, we have a different perspective and a different outlook. So I'm looking forward to, going back and seeing maybe some things that haven't come into fruition. I don't know, but a lot of the things I remember watching on the Jetsons were things that were here and now. And again, that's that fast food. And another thing about the Jetsons, because it was, centered in space, is a lot of what we have technology-wise first came through NASA. So NASA needed what they needed to be able to travel in space. So the microwave and, you think of technical things, even satellites and all of those things. Those things were provided for astronauts, people working in NASA, to be able to do their thug thizzle. And then it was passed on to us. Okay. So that's what it is. And yeah, Pieces of Cheese said the 80s and 90s were wild. They were so wild, but they were so wholesome. Like we had a great time in the 80s and 90s. I know every generation always says our growing up was better, unless you was probably in the 40s and 20s when there was a Great Depression and all of that shenanigans that were going on. But as kids, most of the time, we don't really focus on the real things that are happening in the world. So we don't really, a lot of kids would say when they were kids, they didn't know they were poor. Now, I knew I was poor. But I knew that. But a lot of kids that grew up, God bless them, that didn't have much, didn't know that they didn't have it until they came of age and realized that their parents really did a good job of just raising them and allowing them to be kids. But yeah, the 80s and 90s, we was outside playing, we enjoyed ourselves. You know, we were creative. We had a lot of we learned, even the bullying was different. I was talking to one of my baby cousins, he's talking about how his friends, how they get into it and they bully, and they calling it, they say stuff now like your mama, um, you know, gives a cunnilingus. I'm just using, big words, but just saying real things, explicit things that we didn't say as kids. We might have said your mama's fat, or your mama so ugly, or she's so dumb. Somebody told her it was cold outside or it was chilly outside and she went outside with a bowl. But these kids nowadays, they ruthless. They cut deep. You know what I'm saying? And so it was different. We had a innocence about us, and we had more joy, I think, than these kids do, because they're just so confined to these cell phones, and they're just focusing. And then it's this whole addiction factor with the cell phones that even us adults have, and they're reliant on AI. I'm going to talk about that next week, and get into that conversation too. But they're so connected to computers and not humanity, and so they don't really learn life skills, to me, and learn to critically think. We weren't worried about our kids outside playing all day. Nowadays, we like helicopter moms when it comes to our kids being outside. They can't, it's just different. It's just different. Shout out to E. Carice on the Facebook chat, who says, hey there, how you doing? Good to see you in the chat. Good to see you in the chat. And speaking of what was I mentioning? Kids Corner. I did say last week, for those of you who were listening, that Kids Corner was going to be this Saturday, but I got my dates all mixed up. And listen, I'm going to charge it to just brain fog, y'all, okay? I've told you before, my mom used to tease me all the time growing up, even as a kid. You forget your head if it wasn't on your shoulders. And I tell her, well, it's on my neck. And take a mad dash. You know what I'm saying? Take a mad dash after I said it. Yeah, so it's next Saturday, and I'm so excited about it. Again, we're going to have some great kids on. One of the kids is just 10 years old, been writing books since he was 4 years old, and I'm just so excited to meet him. So I just want to make that correction, along with another show. I don't like listening to myself, because I get to critiquing myself, and I get to saying, oh, I said the wrong thing, because I get all into my vibe, and I realize, no, that's not what I meant to say. And so I know, wasn't on the last show, but the show prior, I was talking about Marvin Gaye, and I was referencing a song that he had, I Want You, that I referenced, I want you the right way, but I want you to want me too. And I referenced that to him going through a divorce. And I said the album title was Here, My Dear, but it's not. Okay, all right. I don't know where I got it from. It was in my mind. And I just want to make a correction, because I do pride myself on being factual. I can't always get it right, but that is my intentions. So if I say something wrong, charge it to my head and not my heart. I would never want to intentionally mislead you guys. But anyway, the Marvin Gaye song, I Want You, is the title, also a song, but it's also the title of the album. And it was his 13th studio album. It came out in March of 1976. And it reflects deeply on his personal relationship with his wife at the time, Janice Hunter, who I think they divorced maybe 4 or 5 years after this album came out. And it was dedicated to her, just a love. Kind of remind me how Beyonce's Lemonade, whatever they was going through, he put it in a song. Like the hit. Okay, so that's what he did. So Janice Hunter, was the second wife of Marvin Gaye. They were married at 17, y'all, 17. He was 32 at the time. They had 2 children together, and again, they divorced in 1982. Sadly, she died in 2022 at the age of 66, and as you guys know, he died in 1984 at the age of 44. And that was a sad night for me. I was just a little girl, but I remember going to my granny's house, and one of my older cousins was playing Marvin Gaye in the den. And she was just, grooving, and she was like, Marvin Gaye died, and I was just feeling away. Not really understanding what that meant, but understanding what that meant. Shout out to Harry. Ooh, not Harry. Oh, see, I was going to say hi to you. And he got a photo. It's Harry Nutsack, y'all, in the chat. And he says hello, and he has a literal nutsack as his emoji. Child, listen, I don't know who be in their mama's basements. Just too much time on their hands. Too much time on their hands, y'all. But just even thinking about mentioning Marvin Gaye and him being married to a girl when he was 33 and she was 17. Wow. times are different, right? We say that when we talk about Bill Cosby and the volumes, and they say, oh, times were different and things were different, and we accepted different things. And I'll even equate that to, if you go back and look at your favorite band members like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and you know, yeah, the names don't really come to me now, but your favorite bands, these men had on half tops, tight pants. I mean, you talk about skinny jeans right now, but they dressed a certain way that if men came out dressed like that now, they would be categorized as being, I mean, we phased off metrosexual to just straight up gay. And so what was the difference there than it is now? Why are they categorized a certain way than they were then? Did we just not speak of it? Did we not care because they were just so freaking talented and that's all we cared about? And now we just nitpick and pick people apart and all of that. But I don't know. But again, we got R. Kelly locked up because of all of the things he did, not necessarily for statutory rape, meaning dating or having sex with someone underage, but he married Aaliyah at the age of 15. And during that time, we weren't tripping. Some people said something, but nobody really said anything. It didn't get to be an issue until the abuse and all of the things that made him look monstrous came into the light. We have Elvis. He married his wife at 21, but they dated, and he was 24, but they dated when she was just 14 years old. You know what I'm saying? And he's a king of rock and roll. Okay, still ain't nobody canceled him yet. Okay, and his wife's name was Priscilla. I think she's still living as well. And Prince, Mai Tai. Remember, he married Mai Tai Garcia. They dated at the age of 16, and he was 38 when they married, and she was only 19. I don't know if people knew, because I barely knew that he was married. And then later on, just watching a reality show that Mai Tai was in, his ex-wife, that they had two miscarriages or a baby born and died as well. So I didn't know a lot about his personal life until watching a reality show. Jerry Lewis, before my time, shout out to the baby boomers, but I know who he is. Quirky guy that used to make a lot of faces on late night TV, or was it morning TV? I'm not sure, but he married a girl at 13, okay? At 13 years old, and he was only 22, and they had their first child at the age of 14. And so, it's kind of, when you think about the times, is it really the times, or were people perverts? I mean, what is it? You know what I'm saying? Because you think about the age, if you just think about how God intended it, it was obviously meant for women to be able, and this is my opinion, just thinking back in historic time, for women to be able, girls to be able to bring forth life at the age of 12 and above, because that's when they were able to be fertile. That's when they started having periods. So maybe, during those times, it made sense that it wasn't a sexual thing. It wasn't a perverted thing. It was just bringing forth life. I don't know. What do y'all think about that compared to now, where, again, back in those times, many people got married at 12, 13, 14 to, much older men sometimes, and had children very young and kept having them until they couldn't have them anymore. So yeah, I don't know. What do y'all think about that? Like, is it just the times have changed, and now we don't judge? When we didn't judge the men back in the day, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and other of our greatest band groups that dressed in a way that would be considered feminine today. We didn't judge them then, but we judge them now. And then we have many, many men who marry young girls underage, which there's a law that says 18 in some states, maybe 16 you can marry. But Jerry Lewis actually married his cousin, his 13-year-old cousin. I just want to put that in now. Anyway. So yeah, since we male bashing, you consider that male bashing? I don't know. But I just want to mention that there's a T app that is created and it's used to bash men, technically. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I just learned about it by reading an article that said that there was an app that was used technically for women to be able to go onto a site and talk about men that have created havoc in their life, I'll say. And so kind of like how Facebook came into fruition. If you guys don't know, Facebook was created by some little college, brats who wasn't getting none. And, the women wasn't looking at them. So they created a website to where they would post women on the page and let people judge them and say what they wanted to say about them. And that's how Facebook came into fruition. So the T app kind of reminds me of that because it's formulated to be able to have a place for women to have an outlet. And, they might be saying a man's going around passing age, or he raping, or maybe he wasn't a good boyfriend. I don't know. I don't know much about it because I haven't seen it. This is just some of the information I've been provided. But anyways, like I said, the way I came about it was, Now it's been hacked. So all of these women who thought they were on a private page, having a confidentiality, have now probably been exposed, and so that's unfortunate. Well, I just wanted to mention that. And the funny thing about the T app is what I also learned is that it was created by a man. And I believe it was a gay man, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he had some trauma with a man as well. Um, yeah. So INC, Intelligent Neanderthal Caveman, says he looks at nature. Yes, I think that's a good point to make. This person says, I am in nature and not a system, and women's nature is trying to navigate the man's world reality because reputation and the worry of it as a woman in and around the world with a certain nature. Okay, okay. Men get on apps to get with women, and women get on for information, a kiki section. So men get on apps to get with women. I agree. I think a lot of times men are just searching for women. They see a cute picture and they friend request you. And women do get on for information. I can agree with that. I think I can support that. Yeah. But yeah, this T app is something else. But yeah, so just a little bit of, I guess some negativity about our men. But while we're talking about our men, let's talk about something positive too. Shout out to the HBCU grads who created an app to help expunge criminal history. So you guys, if you haven't met them, go to their website. It's legalese.com and meet Lawrence Blackmon and Roger Roman, two African-American entrepreneurs who both graduated from Howard University and are now founders of Legalese. It's a Black-owned justice tech startup that uses AI to help people discover expungement eligibility and file court pensions in roughly 5 minutes, no attorney required. That's dope. That is dope. Look, I'm gonna clap. I'm gonna put my little clap on for them because I think that is just too dope. Okay, that's what's up. And so the service is already open statewide in Mississippi and in Illinois and in DC and Maryland corridor, and it's going to be added later this fall again in DC and Maryland. So it is in Mississippi and Illinois, and it'll be added in DC and Maryland corridor later this fall. So the platform will continue rolling out state by state until it is available nationwide within 18 months. So it's coming to a state near you where you'll be able to go onto this website and expunge your records without an attorney. I don't know if there's fees involved or what it entails, but they're making it user friendly and more easy for people who have prior criminal records to be able to go in and expunge their criminal history. So that's what's up. And they're reporting that over 70 million Americans carry criminal records that hinder employment and housing. Expungement IA replaces a months-long high-cost process with a conversational experience delivered through voice, web chat, or SMS text. So that's how you can get this process completed. There's a quote from Mr. Blackmon that says that too many neighbors have waited years for a second chance by letting folks call, click, and text their way to a clean slate. We're providing that equal justice can scale. We're proving that equal justice can scale, excuse me. So again, Mr. Blackmon said that too many neighbors have waited years for a second chance, and by letting folks call, click, or text their way to a clean slate, they are providing the equal justice I said it again, proving that equal justice can scale from Jackson today to every zip code in America tomorrow. So from Jackson today to every zip code in America tomorrow. Some interesting facts about these two brothers, HBCU graduates of Howard. Lawrence Blackmon, he is a Mississippi State representative and is an HBCU graduate of Howard University with a bachelor's degree in communications, a JD from Mississippi College, as well as an LLM from George Washington University. His dad, Edward Blackmon, is also an HBCU graduate of Tougaloo College and has been practicing as a lawyer in Mississippi for the past 40 years. And Roger Roman also graduated from Howard University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and African American Studies. He is a two-time tech founder, investor, ecosystem builder, and a recipient of the Google Black Founders Fund. He currently serves on board of Starting With Today, a Black mental wellness nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. area. So that's another thing to look up, Starting With Today. I guess they have a website. that focuses on Black mental wellness. Again, it's a nonprofit in the Washington, D.C. area. So shout out to them. Shout out to those brothers. You know what I'm saying? Again, you guys can go to legalese.com to get more information if you know anyone who can benefit from that. Meanwhile, we have a whole ass president with two freaking impeachments, twice impeached, 34 felony counts, convicted of sexual abuse, racial discrimination, amongst other sexual implicit allegations. We got a president. So you got people struggling to get jobs. They need to get their records expunged in order for people to not, discard them. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, we got a 34 felony count man trying to run the country. He dragging it into a hole, but that's what he's doing. How crazy is that? Today I posted on, if you guys haven't been following, I did post, I forgot to share this on Facebook. So let me do that now too while I'm talking to you guys. But I also did post the title of this show, which is basically, do we need another leader in our community? Do we need someone to represent us? I'm hearing the conversations where people are saying, back in the day we had people, Malcom X, you hear Martin Luther King, and we don't have a face for our movement anymore. And I just want to ask the question is, what is our movement? And do we need a face? So we're going to get into that. So let me go ahead and share this chat to my group, because I do have at least one person who does engage me in that chat. So I don't want to leave that person out. At least one person out. So let me go ahead and do that successfully. And then we can get back into this conversation. Okay. So I definitely want to get into that. And as I always state, the conversations that we have leading up into the main thing, we got to let the main thing be the main thing. It all kind of builds up around it. So all of these things are relative to what we're talking about. But just so you know, everything that I talk about, I come here in peace. I come here with a passion and in an effort to, my intentions are to spark thought, to evoke your critical thinking skills, and to hopefully inspire you to bring about positive change in your life, someone else's, and even the world. So I strongly believe that we all have an opportunity to leave this world and this life in a better condition than we found it on so many levels. So whatever I'm talking about, I just have a passion about what I'm speaking about. And I not really, we can have a panel and we can have a back and forth, and I would love to do that as well. But it's just me and you. It's just us. Y'all my co-hosts. So y'all adding to the conversation is what I look forward to, and building on the topics. But basically, I just really, really want to spark thought and just have people think about things and go do the research and learn more if you aren't aware. So this is what this conversation is about every week. And that's what it's been. What are y'all watching? I am still on the same things. I have my series that I'm catching up on that'll end after the 6th season. So I think we're at season 4 with Animal Kingdom. I call it White on White Crime. Okay. Nothing wrong with that, right? But anyway, but thinking about TV, I'm learning now that PBS is being affected by y'all's president. Thanks to y'all who voted for him or didn't vote, just sat back and fell back. This is what we're up against. So PBS, federal funding has been eliminated. That is our public station, and this is a public broadcasting station. And so for those of you who are not familiar with it, think of Sesame Street. If you haven't watched Finding Your Roots, that's something that I also watch, Finding Your Roots. I think American Pictures is on that channel. I know my sweetie watches that, but I think it is also on PBS. I could be wrong. I think I am wrong. But anyways, Tiny Desk. I know y'all watch Tiny Desk. So Tiny Desk is a beneficiary of PBS, public broadcasting station. And again, Finding Your Roots, Sesame Street is what I grew up on. And they're totally eliminating funding. So public stations such as these are nonprofit. And if you guys understand what nonprofits are, they are not for profit. So basically they depend on subsidies to be provided and for the public to make donations. So for those here locally, I remember just even, every year our local Black radio station, our only Black FM radio station, KCP 88.1. Every year they do a fundraiser to raise money. And I remember back in the day, people would say they're always begging. And it's, a level of ignorance because they don't understand what it takes to run a radio station. I even remember somebody saying, when they say, oh, we got to pay some bills, we'll be right back. When they say that, they mean they're playing commercials because these people have paid to have ads, and these ads contribute to the, contribution of maintaining the radio station. But anyways, they do fundraising each year. They also get subsidies from our tax dollars funded through these public, the public funding. And so it's going to hit them hard. I think so. I'm not really sure how they're going to be affected. I know they talked about it, or at least I heard that they were going to talk about it last week. KCEP, that's 88.1 here locally in Las Vegas, but I didn't get a chance to listen, so I don't know how this is affecting them. But this is going to affect mostly rural areas, because they're taking away a lot of broadcasting, 24-hour broadcasting of PBS stations, public broadcasting stations that would host Sesame Street and all the things that you like to watch on PBS. Again, Finding Your Roots with Dr. Henry Louis Gates, which I love. What are some of the other programs? There's so many. So anyways, y'all's president, Donald Trump, signed a bill on July 24th, canceling about $1.1 billion that has been approved for public broadcasting. The White House says the public media system is politically biased and an unnecessary expense, and conservatives have particularly directed their eye at the NPR and PBS. So conservatives have particularly been directed there. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly, but anyways, the Senate Appropriations Committee on Thursday reinforced a policy change by excluding funding for the corporation for the first time in more than 50 years after a part of a broader spending bill. So, and here's the thing, just so you guys understand, because a lot of you who may have voted for the Republican Party in support of being pro-lifers per se, didn't want women to be able to just go discard their baby, for people who voted for the other side because they were tired of immigrations, people being here illegally, and all the things that they fed you. They didn't want transgenders in school, and all of the things that they fed you. They never gave the facts of the situation. They just gave you what was a trigger word for you to get you to get on their side. And then you see what they did once they earned your trust, right? So the same thing here. What you need to understand is when these conservatives are saying that this public radio station is biased, nonprofits cannot be, they are nonpartisan, okay? So they can't have a side. And this is why I've always encouraged people to watch NPR, because they're just going to tell the story. They're not going to Fox News your ass and just say what they want you to hear and feed you propaganda to cloud your mind and make you think a certain way, because there are people, and I call them the people that watch Fox News. I don't think they read. I don't think they do the knowledge. You can't convince me that you independently educate yourself and you regurgitate Fox News talking points. So this NPR is a non-biased. Again, a nonprofit can't be biased. Okay, they're nonpartisan. They can't have a specific direction toward religion. They can't have a specific. It's the racist specific perspective towards politics. They just gonna give you the information. Okay, that's all it is. So they're lying to you again. Long story short, they're using these talking points to say, this is why we're getting rid of it, because they're biased. They just, they're one-sided. Anybody who's ever watched PBS can know and understand it is for everybody. Even watching Sesame Street. Okay, y'all? Even watching Sesame Street. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really, it's crazy. It's really, really crazy. Pieces of She, just going back to what we're watching and what we ain't going to be watching on PBS, because a lot of that's closing down. Pieces of She said she just started watching The Family on Netflix. Did we watch that? I tried, but is that Tyler Perry? So she just started watching The Family on Netflix. She said it's pretty mind-blowing, and it explains so much about the political history and how, I know what you're talking about. I'm thinking of that Tyler Perry, the Black series, but now I know what you're talking about, and I have been told to watch that. So she said it explains so much about the political history and how the history is showing up as its present time. Oh, it's a 5-part series. So the family, y'all, I do encourage y'all to go watch that. I have heard that that is, eye opening in reference to what's happening in our world today and how we are where we are. Um, in reference to just like we said, do we need a leader? Is that something that is necessary for us to push our agenda? And again, I ask the question, what is our agenda as a whole? We know that the Republicans, leader or not, they have an agenda and they stick to it. So mind you, if you are 34 count felony, mind you, if you've been impeached twice, mind you, if you've been convicted of sexual assault, mind you, if you've been convicted of racial discrimination against Black people, as long as you stick to their agenda, you get a president, you get a president, you get a senator, you get a congressman, you get a whatever, somebody representative. So do we have that same agenda? Well, it's by, our agenda over everything. Shout out to the D. What up, though? You know what I'm saying? Is it our agenda over everything? Like we overlook everybody? And the Democratic Party, which is one of the main leading against the Republican, I like to be independent, but I got to be strategic in this battle to just maintain our freedom. The Democratic Party doesn't have that same way of thinking. And I think some of it is mixed in with morality and just being do-gooders. And the other is, I think a lot of what we call crab in the barrels, where you don't want to see people succeed. So you call them out and you don't stay on mission. So what is our agenda? Shout out to Shanta, who's also adding to the conversation as we're talking about this and so many things. But in reference to who's our leader, she says there has never been one leader. Also, we have multiple communities that require different representation. I think we need leaders with a shared agenda. Amen to that, right? It goes back to the agenda, okay? It goes back to the agenda, and that's what we need to focus on, the agenda. So obviously, we're not a monolith. Even within our culture, some of us think differently about life, about what we want for our lives, but what is the overall goal? For me, it's to maintain freedom, for nobody to be able to have control over my uterus, to have control over so many things that affect all of us, not to be able to just gaffle us up on the street because we look Mexican or we look Jamaican or we look Puerto Rican or we don't look white. Gaffle me up and then, it's called shoot first and ask questions last, guilty until proven innocent. That's the world we're living in today. So if we all have that same agenda where we want people to be able to be housed, have affordable rent, have livable wages, to have health care, then we shouldn't be so focused on all that outside stuff that maybe we don't agree with people, what they do behind closed doors or how they dress, how they look, who they worship. What is more important and what is our agenda? Okay, what is our agenda? Okay, so GB is watching The Chi. I kind of stopped watching The Chi. He's watching Ironheart and another show, Forever. Now, Forever is dope. I want to talk to the kids about Forever, and I'm kind of on the fence about it because there is a little bit of sex in it, but these are minor. So, we got to have that conversation, but I'm concerned about how their parents feel about it. But yeah, Forever. I like Forever. I finished that series. It's Forever. That's the name of it. And he's agreeing with Shanta that we definitely need leaders with a shared agenda. And at the polls, we need voters who are on the same accord. Okay? A house divided, y'all know the rest. And that is the actual strategy that they have not deviated from in over 50 years plus, since they've learned that they have to compete with us, that we have the right to vote, that we have a right to work in the same places they have, we fought to be in a position to have access to the same rights and privileges and benefits that they have. They had their strategy and they have not deviated from it. Like I said, they got a 34 felony count person as president of the United States. That lets you further know, shout out to what's his name from why did I just forget old boy's name from Family Feud? Anyway, y'all know what I'm talking about. But he was on Kings of Comedy when he said that lets you further know. So that's where I got that from. Anyway, so that lets you further know that they stay on mission versus people like us who have the power. We just get so distracted. Their whole process has been to keep us distracted, to keep us focused on something that is not important, that's not going to change our lives. Who's on that Elon Musk list? It's not going to change the cost of eggs. It's not going to change it's not going to change the cost of rent. It's not going to change your wages. But here we are having a conversation about Elon, and we want to see who's on that list. Just like we wanted Hillary's email. Just like We want to know if Kamala's really black. Just like we want to know all these things that were non-imminent factors, because long as we focus on things that don't matter, they can continue to climb up the ladder and make changes that will benefit them to the fullest. Shout out to my sweetie, Steve Harvey. That's what I'm talking about. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Yeah, okay. So Genuinely Poised watches The Shy too, along with you, GB. And INC Intelligent Neanderthal Caveman says the Black agenda should be family and always be what's best for your family. If you have no family, you have no representation. So we want to talk about family. What does that mean to be family? Because family fights, no one wins when a family feuds, but even in family, we all don't have the same agenda, goals, and agreements. So I want to just pull from the Drink Champs when they ask about loyalty versus respect. When it comes to leadership and us staying on accord and having one agenda, is it loyalty we need from our family, or is it respect? Is it loyalty or respect? INC Intelligent Neanderthal went on to add that our agenda is becoming a white agenda, which is power and control, and Blacks have no power or control in the first place. Black man's agenda is family. Black woman can join if they like. Just a correction: a black family cannot even be brought into life without a Black woman. So we already here. What you mean join? Okay, don't come with that. I don't know what to call it. I don't want to say hotep because that's disrespectful, because hotep just means peace. But they use that terminology as a derogatory term when talking about men who feel like Black women have deviated from the Black family, have strayed away from the Black family. And I kind of get that vibe. But the thing is, a Black family can't even exist without a Black woman. So the Black woman don't need to join. She already there. You know what I'm saying? Okay. All right. So focus here. Focus. But what is our agenda? So I think that's the main thing. And we got to let the main thing be the main thing. What is our agenda? And once we focus on what our agenda is, then we stick to it by any means necessary. Shout out to Malcom X, who was one of our great leaders. He said it. GB says loyalty. He said loyalty all day, because you can't have respect without it. Now I'm watching Animal Kingdom, and I toggle back and forth with that because it's a whole family who's living in the underworld. All they do is take. They're takers, and they just maintain their way of living by taking from others, and it requires a level of loyalty and respect, maybe. And so I toggle back and forth with that conversation, or which one is more important. So the other day I said loyalty is the thing, because you may not necessarily respect the person. I mean, it might be a scumbag. I mean, you got people in this series that are cokeheads. They sleep unprotected, have sex parties. They don't necessarily treat their kids right or women right. I mean, not really somebody that I would look up to. So there's no respect there. But the loyalty comes in as to, well, I'm not going to rat this person out because this person is a part of our establishment. And to do that would dismantle everything. So that's where I'm at with the loyalty. I kind of went back and forth with the respect thing, because I feel like if your person respects you, then they will honor you. But no, the loyalty is more important, because you don't necessarily have to respect the person to just maintain and have a loyalty to whatever your agenda is. And so, yeah, I feel you on that. I'm with the loyalty as well. Definitely with the loyalty. But yeah, so PBS, if you want to help them out, a lot of smaller television programs are going to be hit hard. NPR, I think they only get a small percentage of their funding from the government. Let's see, Civil War, baseball, the Vietnam War, PBS News Hour. They only get 20% of their film budgets from the government, so they can make it up. But projects receiving like 50 to 75% of funding from the organization won't. So there are going to be a lot of organizations that are going to be hit. So if you want to help these people out, just like I was talking about with KCP when they do fundraisers annually to compensate for whatever money they aren't getting, and even if it's in abundance, they use that money to put back into the community, because it is a community-oriented station. Public radio, public nonprofits are usually community-oriented. benefiting the people within their community. So raising any kind of money benefits not just them being able to do the work, but to actually have people come out and take part in it. So if you want to go to pbs.org, you can donate annually, monthly. There's $10, $30, $100 donations, or you can do more. It's up to you. And these things help to keep them alive in a situation, an environment where they are trying to dead our access to factual data, non-biased factual information, and they are going hard at it. If you go back and just do the history on how Hitler was able to do what he did in Germany, you're seeing it play out live and in color here in the United States of America. And the funny thing about all of this is that initially they learned how to divide and conquer from those who were in control here in the United States. So it's just a game, back and forth, back and forth. So it's quite interesting to watch, but it's also scary because we're living in these times. We are experiencing it, and a lot of us, won't even realize what's happening until you are directly affected. Some people have to be they have to see the blood coming out their skin before they realize that they've been cut. You ain't got to cut me. Just say you're going to cut me, and that's enough. You say you're going to cut somebody else, and I know you a cutter. I'm watching you. I got my eyes on you, cutter. I got my eyes on you. So that's how I think. So, yeah. Who are our leaders? Do we need a Black leader? And I'm just reading this excerpt from Black Enterprise, who went on to speak to this as well. Like, who are our leaders? Do we need a leader? It said, the need for a Black leader is a complex and multifaceted issue. While some argue that the Black community has achieved significant progress and is no longer in need of a traditional leader, others believe that Black leaders are essential for addressing systemic inequalities and driving change. The perception of Black leadership varies, with some advocating for a continuation of leadership roles to ensure representation and address the unique challenges faced by Black individuals in the workplace. Others argue that the focus should be on creating a more inclusive and equitable society where all voices are heard and valued. Ultimately, the need for Black leaders is a matter of perspective and context, and it is essential to consider the diverse needs and experiences of the Black community in shaping policies, practices, and promote leadership and equality. Listen, I think, again, we can put all of our thoughts and dreams and aspirations in a bag and shake it up and pull it out. And I think we all have some commonalities. We want our kids to have access to proper education. We want to have access to affordable health care. We want to have access to livable wages. We want to be able to walk the streets without being gaffled up. We don't have to walk around with papers and things of that nature. We want freedom, justice, and equality. Who doesn't want that? I don't care who you are, Black, Asian, Hispanic, white. Who doesn't want that? The only people who don't want that, I wouldn't say don't want it, but the only people who would be against this is they don't want it for others. They only want it for themselves. And we know those people exist as well. So, yeah. And shout out to Marmac, who says, I'm talking about the topic of which is more effective. Which one would you prefer, a loyal person or a person that respects you? And he says, I prefer respect, as I believe we can have a civil disagreement out of respect, while loyalty has the potential to breed yes men. So again, he said he preferred respect, as he believes we can have a civil disagreement out of respect. And while loyalty has a potential to breed yes men. So again, I'm having this, basing this off of a fictional, why don't that word want to come out right? Fictional story, a series that I'm watching called Animal Kingdom, where the family has to have a level of loyalty, and I would say respect, in order to maintain their underworld establishment. Like, you have to be loyal. If you know how things work, you got to make sure ain't nobody snitching. You're not bringing in no strangers. You're not going to sell anybody out. But again, there are some people in there that do some things that I can't respect. There's some serial killers in there. I don't respect that. But I'm loyal to our agenda. And so I hear what you're saying. And I'm just thinking out loud. So that's just my thoughts as well, just adding back to the conversation. So thank you all for joining me in the chat, Facebook and YouTube. I appreciate it. Again, your presence is always my present. And Yeah, so we were trying to figure out who our leader is. So back in the day, we had MLK, right? We had MLK. People romanticize MLK, and I wonder why. I think it's just naturally for us. Once people pass, we romanticize who they were in this life. Like some people really were some good women and good men, good boys and good girls, but then there were some that the preacher had to make up a lie about you. What I say last week? Don't let the preacher. Mama said, don't let the preacher have to lie about you at your funeral. You know what I'm saying? We got people like that. And so with Martin Luther King, even though he has done tremendous, I mean, what he has done for us here in the United States, out of the fight for Black people to rise above oppression, so that we could have equal rights, brought us civil rights. His fight brought us civil rights. He didn't do it alone, of course. We have other faces that we associate with the late great Dr. Martin Luther King, the late great Rosa Parks, and many, 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 many others. I mean, there's so many people I can name, but he was the face. That's what we say when we talk about leaders. When I hear people say we need a leader, I'm thinking of, okay, so you need that Martin Luther King who went state to state, city to city, speaking on behalf of the people and making demands. And look what it got us, civil rights. And civil rights was a big thing until now. Here in 2025, we don't even have that anymore. They're dismantling that. But under his leadership, we gained that. Under a president who was a stone cold racist, we were able to make him, give us the rights that we were due. Okay. And so people romanticize that. And I get it. He was a big deal. You think about leadership. I mean, it's almost like it was written. It was intended for him to come into this world and do what he did and make an exit. And I say that because at 15, he graduated high school. Okay. He graduated Morehouse College at 19 with a bachelor's in sociology. At 26, he had a PhD. Okay. Yeah. So, the same year when he was 26 was the same year that there was a bus boycott with Rosa Parks, because she was like, hell to the no, 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 I'm not sitting in the back of the bus. Just to give y'all context, we were riding on these buses that our tax dollars funded, and they were telling us where to sit. Just us, just Black folks. White folks, no. But our money was just as green as theirs, but they were having a law that said they could tell us where to sit on the motherfucking bus. Okay, just to put things into context. But that's not why she decided at that time, even though they had already planned to have a boycott that was initially going to be run by another young lady, but they wanted a specific face. And this is about leadership again. They had another young lady who was an unwed mother who was going to lead this boycott, the bus boycott, but they decided against it because she was an unwed mother, not because they didn't respect her, but having loyalty to their agenda. They knew that the people looking outside, all you judgmental people, a lot of them Christians, were going to say, who is she? She can't say where to sit. She pregnant and she ain't even got no husband. Focusing on the wrong thing, worried about the wrong thing. Shout out to Shotus. When they say you worried about the wrong thing, that's when he took his girl, he put up on his girl and told her, yo, let's go. We're going out. And she was like, well, I don't have nothing to wear. And he said, you worried about the wrong things. In the same situation. So they knew, they were strategic. They had an agenda, and the agenda was to bring attention to the poor people. They wanted to bring attention to the sanitary worker. They wanted to bring attention to the fact that Black people was tired of being discriminated against as taxpaying citizens in the United States of America, and they had to be strategic. And the agenda had to stay focused on, by any means necessary, pushing it through. And they were successful. Hallelujah. Somebody say amen. Somebody say amen. So the agenda was, again, to push forward civil rights, to push forward equal pay for the sanitation workers, and just for poor people overall. And so they said, no, we can't use a pregnant lady because they're going to judge her, right? And so we know people focus on the wrong things when it comes to certain parties and affiliations, instead of focus on the fact that we got this, and then the outsiders are going to be judging her. And so that's how Rosa Parks became the face. But incidentally, the late great Rosa Parks chose that day because she had just been overwhelmed by the news of the death of Emmett Till. And so, listen, You know what I'm saying? That was the straw that broke the camel's back. You catch somebody on the wrong day, and I talked about emotional intelligence and how emotions can be reliable. In this case, I think emotions were reliable, but she was feeling away. So by that white man coming up to her and telling her she had to move, and she's sitting over thinking about this lady whose son was beaten and killed and thrown into a river, and how we had to see this photo of this young boy. I think he was 14 or 15. That was a trigger. She was like, "No, fuck you." And that's what was the trigger. So it wasn't that her feet were tired, as the story has been told. The truth is, y'all caught her on a bad day. Y'all caught her on a bad day, and that's what you got. And so Martin Luther King headed that, and the movement. Again, we saw the results of that. To this day, we are still benefiting from that, even though he lost his life at the age of 39 fighting for us. Then, of course, we had Malcolm X. Now, here's a contrast. He didn't have a college education. I'm not even sure if he finished school. His parents, however, were definitely about that social justice life, and they were woke. That's the war that's on us right now. We had the war on drugs, when they flooded, they went from Oakland to being an epidemic here in the United States with cocaine, to slow us down from our Black Panther movement, who were feeding hungry people and again, doing the same thing that Martin Luther King was doing, trying to get us in a position of equality, or just leave us the fuck alone and let us live. You stop, remove us from oppression. And so we saw that with the Black Panther movement, and then there was a war on drugs that shut that down, right? Got people hooked on drugs. Same thing here we have with woke. They're trying to get people off the woke movement because that is keeping people aware of what they're really doing, right? So there's a war on woke folks, okay? But Malcolm X, he wasn't always woke. He liked them white chicks at some point, but he came from parents who were woke. They followed they were followers of Marcus Garvey. And this, obviously, the antennas went up for the racists within the community who saw that these people were woke and understood that they had to fight against the oppressor. And they started to terrorize these people. Y'all heard of the Ku Klux Klan and these so-called white wannabe supreme and these white nationalists and all of these other evil people who, wake up, yarn, and stretch and think of us. You're supposed to wake up, yarn, and stretch and praise God and just be grateful for your existence. They wake up, yarn, and stretch, fart, and think of us. And then they be on mission. But their love is hate. So they hate us and they focus day in and day out on how to keep us oppressed instead of coexisting with us and living and just existing as a human. But again, having the parents that he had, his family was terrorized. They ended up burning down their house. And finally his father was killed. They said it was an alleged streetcar accident. If you watch the movie or read the books, Autobiography of Malcolm X, you can learn about that story as well. And the mom just flipped. Here she was already struggling financially. She was already, being woke and being terrorized day in and out. Her house burned down, her family without, and now her man is gone. So who knows what that did to her mentality, right? Who knows what that did to her mental stability, okay? And so here she is struggling with that. And they come along to go ahead and put the nail in the coffin and put Malcolm's mom in an institution. Okay, they put her in an institution saying that she was mentally unstable, which caused Malcolm to go into the juvenile system for a couple of years until his sister got him. From 13 to 15, he's in the juvenile system. Again, I don't know if he graduated high school. I know he didn't go to college. He got his degree in the penitentiary. I ain't mad at him, okay, because after his sister scooped him up at the age of 15, he got into some more trouble, of course, and then as the story tells us, prison kind of saved him because he ended up, befriending a brother from the Nation of Islam who educated him. Again, he didn't go to these institutions, these public institutions. He got his education through the Nation of Islam, okay, in the penitentiary, okay? And so he came out as, he went in as Malcolm Smalls. Was it Malcolm Jamal Little? Damn, I'm getting the names mixed up. Forgive me, y'all. Damn, but y'all know who I'm talking about. He came in with his government name and came out with a name of Malcolm X and also with the Shabazz as well. But he came with that X because it was unknown. Remember, we were stolen from the continent. We don't know much about our history. We know that most of our last names belong to people who enslaved our people. And so we carry these names, but he said no. He's putting an X behind his name because X stands for unknown. We got Generation X. Who is that? Is that me? Yeah. We know, though. We know, okay? So that was his story. Okay, he came out and he was passionate about his people and saving the world and saving his people. And he was under the leadership of the Elijah Muhammad, and he did great. He did great, and he also um, did good up until the point where he started speaking out against poor people and even human rights. He said that the United States of America should be taken to world court for the atrocities that they committed against the black man here in the United States of America. And so that's when, it was time to shut him down as well. And so, you know, you think about these leaders, though, again, we romanticize them. If you think about Martin Luther King, he didn't have a mass following. He didn't have many people. He had his crew, but he was unpopular. He was unpopular during his life. We had pastors and public leaders who didn't want Malcolm X. I'm sorry, they didn't want Martin Luther King coming into their community because it was starting trouble. It was starting trouble for them, right? They didn't want that trouble. They was getting money, from these contributors and people on a low, just trying to keep the black people quiet and, giving them crumbs. And they was good with the money because some people, money is their Lord and Savior. So people didn't really like the trouble. They didn't like the way Martin was talking. Same for Malcolm though. So, and of course he was witty. He was calling the white man a devil, and he was explaining why he felt that way. And he was just giving you the truth as it was. He was giving you the truth as it was. Shout out to Marmac, who said, yeah, Malcolm was the truth. He is the truth. His truth lives on. So he is the truth. But Malcolm, was, his people turned their back too. So he wasn't popular per se, but the people that he was passionate about, that he was fighting for, the people that he learned under, ended up turning their backs too, because he kept speaking the truth. And his truth was, when JFK was assassinated, he was quoted as saying, the chickens have come home to roost. Elijah Muhammad didn't like that. He didn't like that attention being brought to the Nation of Islam. So they kind of was like shifting away from him. But he did not deviate from his deen, which was focused on leading the people out of hell, I'll say. Okay. I mean, I was about to get into some biblical stuff, but I'll just say he was trying to get them out of the burning house that Malcolm X, now Martin Luther King, admittedly said he thought he brought his family, his people into. He was leading them, and he was righteous in his role. But understanding what he understood now, Dr. Martin Luther King, he said later on that he felt that he had led his people into a burning house. Malcolm X was trying to lead us out of the burning house. And again, even the people that he studied under, who he loved, who maybe had loyalty for, he was loyal to, had lost respect for him. Okay, so they were no longer loyal to him, and they had lost respect for him because they stopped supporting him. Monetarily, his family was suffering. His house was being burned, bombed. His wife was getting threats. His girls were being terrorized. He went through a lot, and all of this just to bring us out of a burning house, to free us away from oppression, to lift us up from oppression. This is what this man did, and Elijah Muhammad did not like it. Okay, so they did some things, and the beautiful thing about a man who didn't have a college education per se, a public college institutionalized education, or maybe even a whole high school education, he was so fucking smart, and he did not deviate from his agenda, regardless of the suffering that his immediate family had to do. And those are our warriors. They say that warriors shouldn't have families because of the simple fact so many people suffer, because you can get a warrior. You tell them, I'm gonna kill your wife if you don't stop, marching. I'm gonna kill your kid if you don't stop trying to change the law and give black people civil rights. That would kind of tug at your heartstrings. You gotta be a cold piece to be able to sacrifice. And it can be biblical too. Y'all can go look in the Bible and read about people that made sacrifices for the world, for their people, for their community, in the name of leadership, leading people out of a burning house. So we're looking for that today, right? We're looking for leadership. Malcolm X, after this, he had no protection. And the irony, I just want to get into the irony of this story. I talked about Martin Luther King at the age of 26 when they started the Montgomery bus boycott. 13 years later, he was dead at the age of 39. Okay. with Malcolm X when he was at his prime and was fighting against world court, wanting to take the United States to the world court, and lost the protections, was it respect or the loyalty of Nation of Islam? Somebody tell me, by Elijah Muhammad no longer giving him the protections because they didn't like him speaking without being told what to say. Was that them relinquishing or their loyalty, or was that relinquishing their respect? At any rate, he was wild with it. And 13 years later, he was dead at the age of 39. Two of our leaders started young. You think of the age they started, they were barely the brain, the frontal cortex, the cerebral cortex, as I want to say it is. The brain, let me just put it what a ghost can get it. Shout out to my late great Mr. Joe Madison, who I consider a leader, who has led me, helped to get me to where I am today, with my knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, amongst many other people that have been leaders in my life that have guided me to get to this point. My grandmother, my mother, family members, people I will never know or maybe ever meet. Some gone, but all of them have sprinkled breadcrumbs into my life that have brought me to where I am today. Shout out to Asada Shakur and the Black Panther movement. Just so many great people who have put their lives on the line for the intentions, for their agenda to bring us out of a burning house. And what's burning in that house? Our freedom, our right to healthcare, our rights to education, our rights to be able to step outside while being Black and not and being surveillance. Okay, 13 years. Both of them started on an agenda, and 13 years later, that particular agenda that they went forth on, the great Martin Luther King successfully brought about civil rights. Malcolm X successfully brought about hundreds of thousands of Black men and women into the Nation of Islam, which brought them knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And that's important. That's a woke era. So he got them out of being deaf, dumb, and blind and into a world of knowing and understanding who they are, who the original man is, who they are as people, respecting themselves. He said, who taught you to hate yourself, loving your hair, your skin, your culture? He brought hundreds of thousands of people out of the darkness, out of that burning house. So two great men who went on mission hard, 13 years later exactly died after that. Both of them, 13 years later after that mission, and then 39, they were deceased. So now I'm gonna do my mathematics. Shout out to the 5%ers out there. So 13, if you add that, 1 + 3 is 4. That is culture in mathematics. So does that mean that the message was, this is the culture of the United States of America? You try, and we're gonna show you what that's gonna get you. It's gonna be a hanging a night. And then it being 39, 3 + 9 is 12. 12, 1 + 3, that's understanding. I mean, 12 is 1 + 2 = 3, which is understanding. So at 39, they left us with understanding at their understanding death date. How divine is that? That's a little mathematics for you. So are we romanticizing these leaders? I mean, are we, considering what they did and who respected them and who had loyalty to them to this day, even though we all benefit from it? I'm not just talking about Black people, white women especially, and Asians, Hispanics, white women especially, when it comes to affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion. That included everybody, because the white man was a benefactor of all of the privileges that they, we didn't have that. So who are our leaders? Who are we expecting to be our leaders? When I talk about Malcolm X, and I just want to mention this before I get back into the leadership, because I don't want to lose my train of thought. So let me just highlight what I want to talk about next. And thank you guys for letting me go on my rant, because I do feel like I'm going on a rant right now, but I just think this is some divine information that we need to, I encourage you guys to read more about. But just speaking of Malcolm X's mother, who was institutionalized, my screen is freezing, so give me a moment, but I got a backup plan, who was institutionalized. Currently, y'all's president is also trying to, and she was institutionalized into a medical facility because they deemed her as being quote unquote crazy. Currently, y'all's current president has signed an executive order to be able to also institutionalize people who are saying may have mental health issues. So if you guys aren't aware of this, um, y'all's president, number 47, has an executive order that allows forced hospitalization of homeless people. So we already know that they've already have a bill out that makes being homeless illegal, meaning you can't be out on the streets. You have to have a place to live. And I take that back to Jim Crow. Like, it's been illegal. They made it illegal when they freed the enslaved. When they freed the enslaved, then they could no longer force them to work for them for free, and they made a law that said, well, there's no loitering then. You better not be loitering. Where you gonna be at? You gonna be standing outside like the Statue of Liberty. You don't have no property, you don't have a home, you just been freed. So you make a law that says now loitering is illegal, so now they can lock you up. Okay, you don't want to be locked up, come work for me. That's sharecrop, baby. You'll never get out of it. Shout out to credit cards and all high interest rates that people, purchase homes, cars, and things when they never get out of debt, student loans. You just work for me, and you'll never be free, because every time you say, well, I put in my time, I'm gonna say, no, you didn't. And who gonna check me, boo? Who gonna check me? You know who's in those seats, you know who's in a judicial position, you know who's in positions of power, and they all stick together. You got Confederates who are let back into the House, that's the Senate and the Congress. You have Confederates who are judges, you have Confederates who are lawmakers, you have Confederates who are police officers. Who gonna check them, boo? And so the same thing, you think about Jim Crow. When they released people to the streets, they created a law called loitering. So now they're creating a law making homelessness a crime. And so this president, y'all's president, has a new executive order to combat homelessness, is what they're calling it, depending on where you read the article. But this is the one that I read, and I can see the biases in it, but I'm going to read it anyway. To combat homelessness, encourages local governments to receive civil commitment, a process to place people with mental health issues in treatment facilities without their consent. So what is civil commitment? It's what they did to Malcolm X's mom when she had no money, no food, and all they ate was dandelions. I just learned recently in my older years, okay, I was born in the 1900s, by the way, but the dandelions is very, very healthy. But reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, I thought it was poor people's food. But anyways, so they put her in, they consider her, they put her into an institution because they said, under the law, civil commitment, because they said she was crazy, because obviously whatever she was going through. So civil commitment, what is it? It's involuntary civil commitment is a process in which a judge or someone else acting in judicial capacity orders a person to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital or supervised outpatient treatment facility without their consent. Again, that's what happened to Malcolm X's mom. That's how he ended up in the foster care system. Shout out to his sister who came and got his ass. Okay, so they're saying the specific criteria that would a person would need to to fall under the civil commitment. In other words, they can determine if you need to be institutionalized while sleeping on the street or in your car, or abandoned buildings or whatnot. Is that and it varies for states, but he's allowing the states to make these determinations. But it varies per state as to how they're able to determine if you should be under civil commitment. So they're even giving them the ways to interpret what that means, right? So civil commitment, but the guidelines are usually built around mental illness. So who's determining if you're mentally ill? Developmental disabilities. So the disabled are being attacked now, and substance abuse, and issues that pose danger to themselves or others. So this is what they're basing it on. So if you're on drugs, or if you disabled, or if you looking crazy, they might determine that you need to be in a mental institution. Okay. And that's what y'all's president is allowing them to do. So modern day commitment proceedings have to follow a due process under the law and state federal law, but that's going away too, because they don't allow educated people who understand mental health, who understand how to identify if someone's clinically ill or if they're temporarily going through something that's causing them to be where they are. They don't respect those people, and they have no loyalty to the protections of people either. So, the standards that the states had to follow to commit someone had little legal oversight anyway. So he's just putting it in writing. Again, this is an executive order. New president comes in, it can be thrown out. But this is where we're at now, and we got some punk ass people in the House that will not fight back. They are not David Horowitz. Yes, I'm Gen X and myself. Y'all remember that show, Fight Back? David Horowitz. It was consumer fight back, but you know what I'm saying. It's about the same thing. Fight back. So there's always been a push to orient facilities towards mental health treatment rather than incarceration. So on the other side, there are people who are saying these people who you may be pointing out, but we know it's not particularly that. I explained to you, y'all, went for the bait when they were talking about, getting rid of the illegals, and now it don't matter if you legal or illegal per se. They locking your ass up just because you got brown skin. They can question you. Well, here we go again. They say it's just for those who are considered extremely mentally disabled, or mentally disabled, physically disabled, or just extreme substance abuse. That's what they tell us they're going after. Okay, I just need y'all to remember that when they start gaffling up people who just about to spaz out or crashing out because they don't have any money. You know what I'm saying? I keep my hand on my gun because they got me on a run. And what's the other song? Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. That song is still relative to this day. So that doesn't make you crazy because so much is going on to where you trying to just hold it together. Shout out to Malcom X mom who succumbed to involuntary civil commitment. Today, more than 500,000 people have been committed in the 1950s, 500,000 people were committed to mental health treatment facilities, according to a 2010 study. The number fell to 30,000 by the 1900s with a swift shift in focus on treatment. So again, treatment, okay? It might not necessarily be drugs, it could be therapy, something, but not just locking somebody up and drugging them up and putting a straitjacket on them and not giving them access to affordable housing, livable wages, affordable health care and things of that nature. And the Supreme Court has also stepped in to define the boundaries of civil commitment. But we know there's the Supreme Court, the majority of the Supreme Court are number 47's bitch. So whatever he wants is what we're gonna get, okay? But this matters, okay? I just want you guys to know that this is what's going down. It matters because involuntary civil commitment has historically been used as a preventative method to confine people before they harm themselves or others, and mostly frequent affects vulnerable groups such as the LGBTQ community, people of color, and people with disabilities, according to several studies. You think about who these people are. When I think about the LGBTQ community, I think about kids who got kicked out of the house because their daddy or their mama found out that they gay, okay? That they were gay. So these are people that don't have mental health issues, but they're being classified as such because why are you on the streets? I remember going to Havana, Cuba, and they said there's no homelessness. Everybody has to own their home. Now, how it's maintained, your plumbing might suck because you own whatever you got, but everybody has a home. So if you see somebody living on the street, they're probably a delinquent. So if you saw a teenage kid begging, it was because he did not want to live in that home. He didn't want to follow the rules and things of that nature. Okay, so yeah. I'm reading the chat right now, and I'm thank you for the laugh. Shout out to GB who said, who was adding to the conversation. I was speaking early. He said their love is hate. That's G. I've always said that hate is a dark side of love. So yeah, their love is hate. And like I said, they wake up stretching, they fart, and then they think about us. They on mission. And shout out to Pieces of She who says that now I gotta go listen to Step in the Name of Love. Whew, too much going on in this. Shout out to her because I know that she has to, deactivate from social media because it is a lot going on. It is a lot going on. And as much as I try to not talk about these things, it's just not in my spirit. I can't lie to myself. I have to be loyal to who I am. And respectfully, I present that information to you all. So GB is laughing at her as well. So yeah, so this is affecting, again, the LGBT community, this law that's going to say if you stay on the streets, we can just call you crazy and lock you up. It's going to affect the disabled people and people who are, maybe abusing drugs and alcohol. Shit, I'll be drinking heavily and doing whatever drug heavily too if I ain't have a place to stay. I hope not, but I can understand that. You know what I'm saying? People who don't understand that are lying to you because it's people that's rich, it's people in positions of power in the house right now who be off that cocoa and be off that whiskey or whatever, coming to work drunk. So they got issues too. They just got a house to live in and a way to eat, okay? But homelessness drug users, if you don't know the stats, according, it's reportedly that in homelessness, 38% of abusers are alcohol abusers, 38%, 26% abuse other drugs. And there are over 2.5 million children who experience homelessness along with their families in the US each year. So again, as we look around, they're cutting. They're not fighting to get affordable housing. They're cutting back on subsidies. You can't get subsidies. They're cutting how long you can be on SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare, and get all of the benefits. They're taking all of this away, so the people gonna end up on the street, and then what ends up happening? They end up being housed. Okay. Um, and then as far as the mentally ill that are homeless, 25%, that's about 140,000 individuals, are part of the homeless population according to HUD. And also according to HUD, 45% of the homeless population, or about 250,000 individuals, experience some form of mental illness. So that's what it is. So if you guys did not know, though, this is not new. This is America as we know it. When they say make America great again, they are trying to take it back to what it used to be. Did y'all know that there used to be poor houses here in the United States, where there wasn't Social Security, there wasn't Medicaid, Medicare, food stamp, SNAP, Section 8, all of the things that help people stay out of off the streets, per se. They benefit them to help them stay out of the street. There were poor houses. And this is for people who couldn't afford to pay their rent, or people who had mental illnesses. They put them in workhouses, they called them. And the men and women, they would split them up. There was no communication between the two. These workhousing systems were instituted under the Poor Law Amendment Act in 1834 in an attempt to cut expenditures on those in poverty and reduce the number of beggars on the street. Okay, this is a real thing. This is a law. Okay, this is an amendment, and it inspired lower class people to work harder in order to better provide for themselves. Don't this sound real familiar? Like they say, history don't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Don't this sound the same? Poorhouses, okay? So in the United States, poorhouses were more common during the 19th and 20th centuries. They were often situated on grounds of a poor farm on which able-bodied residents were required to work. A poorhouse could even be a part of the same economic complex as a prison farm. Y'all got to listen to me slow, because that everything that I'm saying right now is everything that's happening in the world we live in today, or they're trying to get down. If you think about everything they're doing with incarceration and this whole, what they're calling it, immigration deal and all of these things. So these people, they're putting them in these institutions. Yeah. And poor farms were county or town-run residences where poor people, mainly elderly and disabled people, were supported at a public expense. They were generally under the direction of one or more elected or appointed superintendents of the poor. Okay, so they had poor farms. And before the late 1960s, if you guys didn't know, people with mental health issues were often thrown into jails for vagrancy alongside criminals. So this has been going on, and he's just trying to bring it back. So when he tell you make America great again, it ain't got nothing to do with the benefit of the progression of people. It's just to make the rich stay rich, and keep a mass community of poor people, so that they have people to work for them, and they can just sit on their lazy asses and do nada. Okay. And again, you guys, when you think about homelessness, criminalizing homelessness and locking people up in institutions against their consent, this is going to affect mainly people of color. Patients of color is what they're calling them, are more likely than white patients to be committed to involuntary psychiatric hospitalization. And that's according to a 2022 report from the American Psychiatric Organization. So Black patients are those who are most identified as multiracial and Black, who are still more vulnerable after factoring these founding variables. So it's a real thing. And so right now we know who the white man's leader is. They voted for him. They support him. They wear caps. They damn near worship him. But who is our current leader, y'all? Who is our hero? Do we need another hero? Who is our leader? Like I said, mine comes from, a multitude. I don't need anyone specifically speaking on my behalf. I think about Jasmine Crockett. She's one that's fighting for us. I think about, again, I mentioned Joe Madison. I listen to Karen Hunter. I think of all the people that I look to get marching orders from, that I trust and respect. I know that they're knowledgeable, they're educated, their passion is to bring us out of a burning house. And they will do that by any means necessary. And they're not going to deviate from the agenda, regardless of what may be a distraction. or maybe a distraction for some. Um, yeah, who's fitting to represent an entire culture? Who do y'all think? If you could think of one person that could lead us out of a burning house right now, name that person. Again, we have current leaders. Some people even saying Pastor Jamal Bryant is one because, hey, he had the Target boycott that's been successful. Now he initiated the General Dollar boycott. I don't know how that's going, but this is all to bring attention to the fact that these people are taking our money, but they don't respect us. They have no respect for us. And then you got pastors and reverends that don't have loyalty. They don't even have loyalty to the people. Um, Mind you, if they respect us, they don't have loyalty. There was a National Baptist Convention USA that accepted 75,000 donations from Target. So you see how Target understands what our dollar means. But Target went to a National Baptist Convention USA. That's who they went. So they think that the National Baptist Convention USA represents us. What do y'all think? Does that represent us? I'm guessing probably a lot of y'all don't even know who they are. Okay. But also, there is a member of the First Baptist Church of the 8th Street in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who's criticizing this, along with Jamal Bryant, who says, as a pastor of this church for the past 16 years, as a member of the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated for over 25 years. So he's an actual member. Here we go again. Can't stay on agenda because we got people that get distracted by $75,000. Okay. And he said, I deeply regret the convention's decision to accept the donation from Target for two key reasons. He said that number one, that there's significant disparities that he says Black residents in his town face compared to other white counterparts, such as income. So that's one of the things. He citing data from the 2024 State of Black Chattanooga. He said that of the family's income, the median income for Black families in Hamilton County is only 55% of the median white family income. So but this is our problem, y'all. This is our problem. So they just go find a bunch of Black people and they say, oh, Target says, oh, these Black people must represent us. Sometimes they go run to Al Sharpton, right? Sometimes they go run to people who may not necessarily represent us. We put a face on, they decide for us. We let these people decide. And they give them money and say, we're going to give you so many thousands of dollars to put back into the Black community. So there was even a situation where they offered Jamal Bryant, who spearheaded the Target boycott, $2 billion into Black-owned businesses. He said they were going to do this by July 31st. And he said, no. He said, no, that's not what I want. Because he went in with his demands. He went in with an agenda. And he said, this is what we want. If you cannot give us this, then there's no deal. He didn't deviate from that. He stayed on mission. And so that's the difference between these pastors. He said that the donation that the other pastors took, it was going to be split four ways. Who what the NBA USA, National Baptist Convention, American National Missionary Baptist Convention, and the Church of God in Christ. So he demanded this after they offered him $2 billion to pledge to Black business and community through products and services and Black media buyers. He said, no, I want you to put $25 million amongst any of our 23 Black banks. I like that. He said, this was his demand. You must put, did I say 25? 250 million into 25 Black banks. That's how we get ahead, having the money to be able to have the power. First, you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the respect. So this is what he demanded, which I like. Okay. He also said that he wanted money to go into 10 historically Black colleges and universities. But no, his demands were not met. And so he refused the billions of dollars that Target was trying to dangle in front of his face to get him to shut up and get people to go back to Target and spend their money. Okay. So who is our leader? Even in the civil rights era, back in the day, we had Johnny Cochran. He was the civil rights and police brutality head. That was the face of our leadership when it came to civil rights and police brutality. And you guys know he became extra popular for those who didn't know who he was by representing O.J. Simpson successfully during his murder trial. But now we have Benjamin Crump, right? Y'all name somebody else who's as popular as him. When something go down, who do they call? Benjamin Crump. And again, he's an attorney, and he's, Benjamin Crump right now, he definitely works on wrongful death lawsuits. As I mentioned earlier, he settled a lawsuit with the Henrietta Lacks family for an undisclosed amount for them just using her cells without telling her, and using her name, her initials, without telling her. But he, represented Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, George Floyd, Keenan Anderson, Sonia Macy. Yeah, he's done a lot. So is he our leader? Like, do we need a leader? Is he one of the leaders? Do you like what he's doing? Is it a collaborative thing? Has he deviated from our agenda? Would he deviate from our agenda? Because I think that's the most important thing when we're thinking about these things, is who is going to stay on mission, period. Like, are we going to get distracted? God forbid if we find out Benjamin Trump, Benjamin Crump is cheating on his wife. I'm just, being hypothetical. I don't mean that, and don't speak that into the universe. But are we going to say, nah, he ain't our leader no more because he a cheater? Are we going to say, other people that we love and respect, per se, we hold no more loyalty to them because they've done something immoral? Or are we going to say, as long as they stick to our agenda, which is leading us out of a burning house? Because what man is perfect, right? So I think that's where we're at. Shout out to GB, who's adding to the conversation again. I appreciate you. He said, I think whoever is should move in silence, because we know from history that once someone is held as a hero, they get shut down. I just talked about two brothers, okay? 13 years to the date and 39 years to the age. And then when they start talking about something so serious, that's when they got shut down. He said, those who know don't speak, and those who speak don't know. Okay, y'all marinate on that, though. Those who know don't speak, and those who speak don't know. Marinate on that. Marinate on that context, okay? Because we do know that we have to have people out there, shout outs. You think about somebody like Harriet Tubman. She didn't speak, but word of mouth got out. And, she successfully brought, I think it was 70 plus people, my numbers might not be exact, to freedom. She could have just freed herself and went on about her business, but she was a leader. Was she the face of leadership during the enslaved periods in time? Or was she just one of the faces? Okay, we had so many other people. Pieces. She says, I think that Jasmine would be an amazing leader because she is so smart, and she is an attorney and knows the law. But as we can see, this country ain't ready for a Black woman to lead. Yeah, they're trying to gerrymander her district. They're trying to make it so that they move the people that are in her, move her out of her own district, so they can say you can't represent this district because if you live in a different area. So they're trying to move her location where she lives into another district so they can say, no, you can't represent this area. And obviously she's doing well. Her constituents, people will support her and vote for her. But their strategy, they are not deviating from their agenda. But who's leading them? Who's the face of these white right-wing wannabe supremacists, white nationalists? What do they call themselves? They're some kind of national Christian nationalist or something. I don't know. They got so many different damn racist names, evil slogans for who they are. Like, yeah, but to me, Jasmine is a leader, and that's why they strategically they use them. They trying to cut her down either through the paper or through other means. Y'all. Okay, I got a host of other things I wanted to get into, but I try to keep this to an hour and a half. And so, because I know Saturdays are great and we have a lot going on. I had some clips I wanted to play, but maybe we'll do it another time again next week. I'll be talking to some cheering, so we won't get into too much of these politics and other, things that are going on. But I do want to encourage you guys, if you're looking to purchase a home, know the interest rates have not gone down. I know the news is saying, because of all the other stuff that's going on with y'all's president, that the interest rates have decreased. Based on what I read today before, coming on live with you guys, that the interest rates are still the same. I think it's, for mortgage rates, 6.72%. But anyway, there's a place called NACA, NACA, led by Bruce Marks. If you're interested in becoming a homeowner, if you're not in a rush, it might be a slow process, but at least you can get in. There's also employment opportunities through NACA as well. And you can go to B as in boy Marks at NACA.com to email him and to get information about becoming a homeowner. Also, they have a phone number, 702. That's area code here. Okay. Shout out to the group as well. But it's 425-602-6222. Again, that's for DACA, 425-602-6222 to get more information about that. Um, let's see. So, do we need another hero? I think we have plenty already. I really, really do. And That's what it is. I didn't get into the Vegas mass shooter in New York. I know there was a conspiracies about that. Um, Shout out to my girl who presented some conspiracies. If you guys don't know, they were accusing some man from Vegas. They say killing four people, injuring one in New York at a skyscraper building where it housed the NFL, both the NFL and Blackstone headquarters. And he left a note after dying by suicide as to his concerns with CTE, which is a brain disease that is caused usually by lots of tension to the head. Football, for example, could be one way of getting it. And there were some conspiracies about that. And from what I read, um, how it just started, then it died down, so you didn't hear a whole lot about it. But it's like another distraction, and it's unfortunate. And my condolences to all of those who died. There were four people, one including a police officer. But some of the conspiracies in regard to this that was said to me was there's nothing was adding up about this dude driving 2,000 plus miles away and not in his right mind. Okay. Also, that not getting stopped by anyone across the 12 states for erratic behavior. Going to the exact address you are looking for and doing what you could have done at an NFL headquarters in California. So he went from Las Vegas to New York, and he could have went somewhere closer. The CEO of the controversial company coming up dead, and who happens to be a woman, which I'm sure she's going to be replaced by a white man. So these are some other thoughts regarding the guy who police are saying had a mental health history, who was walking around with a big ass gun. Okay. And that also that if you were in your right mind enough to obtain a CCW permit, which calls for extensive background check, then why is he considered not in his right mind now? So those are some of the conspiracies behind the fact that this man went and killed four people, injuring an additional person last week in New York. And the significance of it more so is that they're saying he's from Vegas and had mental health issues. So I touched on that. So touched on that. But yeah, you guys, if you want to donate to PBS, please do so. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being live with me in the chat. I'm about to go turn up with my family because we got this FTK going on. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. And I'll close out with a little comedy. I'm going to play a little Paul Mooney. I had so many clips that I missed, but I want to play this Paul Mooney. But before I do that, let me just get my, what do I call this? My official thank you, where you get this for listening and chatting. See, we'll close out with a little bit of Paul Mooney humor. Just with everything that's going on in the world, I try to close out with a little levity, and so that's what I'll do here with you all today. I hope that you all will enjoy the rest of your Saturday and the weekend until we meet again next weekend. And again, we'll be hanging out with some kids if all goes well, and just having another good time here with you all. So I'm trying to pull up this clip and just give me a momento. I don't know why I can't pull it up at this moment, because normally it's very easy for me to do because I've gotten good at this. Paul Mooney was another one. I think he ended up with a brain disease. I think he had Alzheimer's, but he was so funny to me. I love the way he poked at racism and just made it as a matter of fact situation. And it was the way he expressed it was a way in which it was really going down, and still going down. And I'm still trying to find this clip, and I just hate when this happens. Okay, so let's see. I had it right here. Oh, I know where it is. My bad, because I'm looking in the wrong place. But again, I love and appreciate y'all. And let's close out with a little levity, and we'll play a little Paul Mooney.
Neighbor told me a joke, and then I'm finished, and I laughed so hard about her sister, who's a white woman, who baked the chocolate cake for her little white son. And she turned her back. The little white son put chocolate on his face. Said, "Look, mommy, I'm black." And she slapped him. She said, "Don't you ever say that in this house. Go tell your dad what you said." She said, "Look, Daddy, I'm black." And the daddy slapped him. "Don't you ever say that. You go tell your grandfather what you said." "Look, Grandpa, I'm black." And Grandpa slapped him. "Go back to your mother." And the mother sitting down and said, "Timmy, now what have you learned today?" And Timmy said, "I've learned I've been black for 5 minutes, and already I hate you white people."
Much love to y'all. Have a great day. All right, y'all.